And all of this points to design. Things are designed. That car is no accident. Now, the design question is kind of tricky. Is this the result of design, or is this just the way water molecules kind of arrange themselves when they freeze? It's a snowflake. It looks beautiful. It looks designed. But is that apparent design? Okay, if I look at this, though, and conclude that this was caused by wind erosion over a long period of time, guided by natural selection, you might be a little skeptical. Because this looks like it was done by a guy with a jackhammer and a lot of time on his hands. I've seen rock cliffs. I go hiking. I see rock cliffs that look like faces. I've never seen rock cliffs that look like the 4 presidents of the United States. There's a big difference. So that's the question, what kind of design? The universe is more this kind of design than snowflake. That's simple. So if you believe in the Big Bang, then you must ask who then is the Big Banger. A popular question that comes back is, well then, who created God? This is in the category of questions, can God create a burrito he can't eat? Or can God create a rock he can't lift? Can you identify what the problem with this is? You violated the definition of God. God is uncreated, by definition. God is omnipresent, he's omnipotent, he is transcendent, he is above and beyond the created order. So God is always greater than the rock he creates. You can't answer that question. It's a false question. The real question that you must grapple with is, who created the rock? Not can God, those are those hypotheticals where I think it was Augustine who said there's a special place in hell reserved for people who ask those kind of hypothetical questions. But it violates the definition of God as being uncreated and above and beyond the created order. Now, if you try to answer that by saying, well, there's a God, and who created that God? And who created that? And who created that? You fall into what's called infinite regress. In other words, you better have a lot of time on your hands because there's no end to that question. If you violate the notion that God is uncreated, by definition, a God, whatever God is uncreated. Let's talk about I don't like God. Probably this is the most common question I get asked from people who don't go to church. Something bad happened in their life and they ask, why did God permit this? Why does God allow suffering? Why does God permit evil? If God is merciful, kind, powerful, and everything else, why does he permit suffering and evil? And atheists seem to play this card as if they just discovered it. And they forget the fact, they don't know the fact, that there's been 2,000 years of Christian theology devoted to theodicy, the theology of suffering. There's a book in the Bible devoted to this topic, the book of Job. And the answer in the book of Job is, there is no good answer. There is no good answer. Deal with it. God comes finally in chapter 38 or so after tons of really bad theology. And he basically says, hey, were you there when the seas were parted? Were you there when the sea and the dry land were made? Or, do you know anything? And if I explain this to you, you wouldn't understand it. Why? Because I'm God, you're not God. That's good for you. And Job repents for himself, his friends, everything else. We're not in a position to judge good and evil. What was that? What were Adam and Eve attempted to do? To judge good and evil. That's God's business. How dare we take over the business of good and evil? So I asked a few questions in response. First, why does God allow suffering? Why do you? If you're so concerned about suffering, why don't you do something about the suffering in the world? Because most of the suffering is caused by us. We're the problem. I'm the problem. I personally cause a lot of suffering. And frankly, I don't care about all the suffering I cause. And it's a lot convenient. It's a lot more convenient to blame it on God than to blame it on the neglect of my neighbor. Secondly, what's your point? Because, here's why. If you're going to debate about God's character, you have to assume that God exists. Just because he's mean doesn't mean he doesn't exist. It just means you don't like him. I mean, the believers in the Bible get mad at God. Why are you allowing this God? The psalmists are praying these things, But they're believers. It's okay to be angry with God. I tell people that, okay, it's not that you don't believe he doesn't exist. You're mad at him. Go with that. Run with that. You can handle that. Is suffering necessarily bad? Ooh, try that on for size. Why do you say suffering is bad? If you're an evolutionist, suffering is good. Death is good. It's the mechanism. Why are we so worried about all that oil spilling into the Gulf of Mexico? If evolution is right, I expect higher life forms to be crawling out of that slime. Why are we so worried about the damage that human beings do? Last time I checked, we're the top of the evolutionary food chain, soon to be replaced by something higher. I'm still waiting. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing any candidates kind of sticking up their hands. But why are we so worried? We're part of the system. So, go ahead, have a ball, belch out your greenhouse gases. Who the hell cares? Because all of this environmental pressure, if you're an evolutionist, is supposed to make new life and diverse life. But now, oh no, they're saying the Gulf of Mexico is going to be reduced to red slime. You mean it's going to kill all the life? What went wrong? Well, give it enough time, I suppose, Christians should be the environmentalists. Christians should be concerned about that because we have a stewardship. We understand that. Adam and Eve were entrusted with dominion over the creation, and we are screwing it up. And we're accountable for this. But you can't be an atheist and an environmentalist. I don't see why. Evolution. Just, hey, pollute away, baby. It's going to work out. Is suffering bad? Is pain bad? If you don't experience pain in a broken bone, it doesn't heal. Lepers lose all their sense of feel, and they injure themselves so badly they lose body parts. Pain is good. Embrace the pain. No pain, no gain. Yes, sir, that's right. Pain is part of the process. Why is that evil? Why is that bad? And who made you the judge of what's good and evil? What is evil? Is there such thing as evil? I say no. There's no such thing as evil. Evil is good used against God. God made everything good, very good. And we take what is good and very good, and we say, screw you, God, we're gods. Take that. Sex is good, the way God gave it. Use it against God, your own way, to please yourself, evil. But it's a good used against God. And so there's a kind of a perversion of what, and we know the answer, why do all these things happen? It's sin. It's us. It's not that we have problems, we're the problem. Each one of us, we contribute to it. And we understand. We have the answer to suffering, but it's not an answer the world likes. And that is the sufferer. That God came in the flesh to suffer the sin of the world and to embrace human suffering in his own flesh and to redeem all suffering, so that Paul says we actually rejoice in our sufferings because they are the birth pangs of the new creation, and they create in us hope and endurance and character. I've never met a person of character who has not suffered. Suffering is the mechanism by which God builds in his character, hope, endurance, patience. But you can't make this argument if you don't believe it. Why would a loving God send anyone to hell? Ever heard that one? God's love, why send anybody to hell? Why not? What should he do? What do you do when you invite a bunch of your friends to your party and they tell you, I'm sorry, I got to change my light bulbs this weekend, I can't come to your party. I'm real sorry, I got to wax my car. Man, I got to brush my dog, I don't have time to come to your party. After a while, if you keep hearing this from your best friends, what do you tell your best friends when they don't come to your party? Go to hell. I'm getting new friends. Can you imagine Jesus on the last day? He stands before the world with these nail-scarred hands and side, and he says, the feast is on me, I paid for it all. And everybody's kind of reaching for their good works, saying, no, I did it. I did it. Here are all the things I did for you. Here are all the things I did to make up for the evil that I've done. And after a while, this just kind of spoils the party. It's a bunch of party poopers. Outer darkness for you. I said, boom, I never knew you. Not that way.